Welcome back to our channel where we share updates and untold stories about Catherine, Princess of Wales, and her royal family. Today we bring you some news. Camilla bursts into tears after King Charles' unprecedented decision to ban her family from royal trust. A source indicates that Buckingham Palace has experienced significant friction after King Charles's decision to exclude Camilla's relatives from the royal trust. Camilla has shown intense anger at King Charles's ultimate decision concerning her family. The insider said that Camilla has attempted to oppose King Charles on his decision. This film will uncover what really transpires behind the Windsor door. Buckingham Palace has said that it would make big changes to the management structures that run the royal trusts. Many royal analysts see this as a purposeful attempt to change where institutional boundaries should be. The official declaration, which was signed by the king, framed the move in terms of procedure, saying that it was required to strengthen long-term institutional integrity and make governance easier. The notice's language was technical and meant to be vague, but it was clear to those who keep an eye on the monarchy's inner workings that Queen Camilla's adult children, Tom Parker Bowles and Laura Lopes, will no longer be involved in overseeing or managing these entities. The decision has sparked a heated and complex public debate about the future of the monarchy under King Charles III. For those who are deeply rooted in royal tradition, the move was in line with a long-standing concern how to maintain an institution whose legitimacy is based on both constitutional practice and historical symbolism while adapting to modern family structures. In the last several years, the Queen Consort's family has been more and more apparent at the edges of royal life. People have seen their appearances at state events, memorial services, and some charitable events in different ways. Some saw them as acts of family solidarity, others as a harmless modernization of protocols to reflect blended families, and still others as the first signs of an effort to make a permanent place for them in the Crown's orbit. The restructure now seems to answer such doubts once and for all, officially re-establishing a clearer line between the hereditary line of succession and the monarch's family via marriage. The palace's short statement didn't identify anybody, make any suggestions, or provide a timeline other than that new norms for governance will be put into effect right now. But the impact was clear. In a system that depends a lot on symbols, and the idea that the sovereign is fair, even little changes to procedures may have a big impact. The Queen's children are no longer able to be trustees or managers of foundations connected to the Crown. This is not just a personal choice. It is a public statement aiming to reinforce the concept of where power should be in the constitutional monarchy. Many analysts, constitutional lawyers, and large parts of the public thought that signal was long overdue. This change has been in the works for a long time. Queen Camilla's children have been slowly becoming more involved in royal life. It was common and well acceptable for Camilla's kids to go to family occasions like weddings, holidays, and private memorials when she married the Prince of Wales. This was only a question of etiquette. Tom Parker Bowles, a well-known culinary critic and novelist, and Laura Lopes, an arts expert and curator, kept their professional identities despite being seen more and more at public events related to the palace. At first, their presence was not unusual, as is common in many modern public households where step relations are present at both private and public events. Initially, their functions were understated and mostly informal. They were often seen at the fringes of big ceremonial events, such as Trooping the Color memorial services and events when the Queen Consort was a visitor or sponsor. Others who saw the palace and others who were sympathetic said that this showed how the monarchy was being practical and kind. It showed that modern royal houses, like modern families, are frequently mixed, and that expecting otherwise may be too harsh. But for others, the gradual normalizing of their presence made them feel uneasy. Their presence became more frequent and more noticeable over time. What started as regular attendance began to seem like what some saw as a pattern of unofficial representation. As time went on, this little alteration took on a form that made it hard to tell the difference between private support and public standing. Sources close to the royal family said that the change was not an accident, but part of a well-planned long-term plan to make sure the Queen Consort had a reliable support network while dealing with the lonely responsibilities of public life. People who supported such an approach because it was kind and logical. They said that senior royals should be able to have personal help from family members, including those they married. But for many who were against it, the tendency went against an unwritten but strong constitutional logic that functions privileges and the symbolic authority of the crown come primarily from inheritance and official appointment, not from being close to someone or personal preference. More and more people were paying attention to Laura Lopes. She was photographed more often at official events and high-profile memorial ceremonies, often alongside top palace aides. This was a privilege that had only been given to those who were known to be part of the family's public life. People who knew her were curious about what, if any, official function she had when she attended state dinners and other formal gatherings. She didn't have a royal title or any official responsibilities, but she was often close to important ceremonial events, which made her position unclear in terms of procedure. The uncertainty made many wonder, was she just a helpful daughter, or someone who was discreetly gaining more power? It became a common subject among royal commentators. For advocates of a more inclusive methodology, this developing framework signified a long-awaited shift. They said that a contemporary sovereign and their family should be supported by close family members, whether they are linked by blood or marriage. They also said that keeping these personal ties out of the public realm was wrong, since it ignored the human aspect of public service. They argued that permitting a consort's family sufficient visibility would not inherently jeopardize constitutional standards, but rather enhance the monarchy's ability to modernize in compassionate and sympathetic ways. The alternative, more conservative view, on the other hand, focused on long-standing rules that have regulated royal life for hundreds of years. From this point of view, ancestry and service to the crown are the main things that determine power and access inside the monarchy. Officials, heralds, and historians have said that the monarchy's mystique and perceived legitimacy rely in part on how clear the line of succession is and how clear the difference is between official duties and private relationships. Adding non-royals to the inner circle gradually, even in supporting capacities, was seen to be a threat to that distinction, which may weaken the symbolic coherence that the institution relies on. The gradual rise in the public visibility of the Queen's family created the conditions for a more intense internal battle over the House of Windsor's identity and future direction. Despite the public image of unity and calm, reports say that the growing exposure of Camilla's family made senior royals, especially the Prince of Wales, more and more uneasy. The prince has a special institutional duty as the heir apparent to protect the crown's continuity and reputation. People close to the palace said that Prince William, who has a strong sense of responsibility to the institution, saw the blurring of lines between the royal family and the Queen's personal relations as a threat to the monarchy's reputation. Reports say that William's concerns were more about the hazards from a constitutional point of view than from personal reasons. Several sources say that he made two related points in discussions that were publicized. First, the British constitutional monarchy depends on the stability that comes from having a clear, unbroken line of succession. Second, the roles and privileges that come with that succession should be based on birthright and public service, not on marriage or being close to the sovereign. William and his advisors thought it was risky for people to think that Camilla's kids had the same access and influence as senior royals because it may set a bad example for how people see the sovereign as a substitute for hereditary entitlement. The issue of property and estate management served as a tangible and notably delicate focal point for these apprehensions. The Duchy of Cornwall is a private estate that was set up in 1337 to provide the successor to the throne money. It serves both as a source of money and as a symbol of the obligations that come with the title of Prince of Wales. The heir's job as steward of the duchy is not a personal pastime, it is a custodial trust that should be handled wisely for the benefit of present and future beneficiaries, and by extension, for the institution itself. People in William's circle were worried when they heard that Laura Lopes had been sighted visiting numerous important duchy locations and had made friends with the workers there. The idea that a non-royal might learn about how the duchy works or be granted access that could be seen as preparation for a formal position was a threat to what they thought was the rightful realm of the heir. Long-time palace workers, many of whom had worked for Queen Elizabeth II for decades and had to meet her strict standards, also said they felt uneasy. Their professional identities were shaped by a tight hierarchy that divided up access to information privileges and avenues of influence based on official position and duty. A perceived informal elevation of the Queen Consort's offspring contested that official rationale. An unnamed former staffer said that the arrangement created an unsettling ambiguity, which perfectly defined how hard it had become to figure out what rights, if any, came with being associated with the Queen. For those who were used to the rules and rituals of royal service, the slow merging of personal and official worlds jeopardized the same structures they were trying to protect. During this time of growing but still private conflict, Princess Anne, the Princess Royal, is said to have determined that a stronger involvement was needed. Princess Anne has always been seen as a stabilizing factor in the royal household because of her strong sense of responsibility, serious public demeanor, and strict devotion to the rules set by her late mother, Queen Elizabeth II. Her public image, serious, unemotional, and clear about what constitutional duty means, made her an important voice in issues when the stability of institutions was at danger. According to palace insiders, Princess Anne had been watching the situation with quiet worry, and her decision was based on a strong feeling of responsibility to the monarchy's health and continuance. She saw the crown as an institution, not a business. Its legitimacy rested on the clear line between what belonged to the king personally and what was the crown's official business. She allegedly thought that letting non-royal relatives, no matter how good they were, take on posts that indicated official status may weaken a key part of the Constitution. Her nephew, the Prince of Wales, had a very similar opinion, and that agreement helped to make a decision. Princess Anne is alleged to have decided that immediate and high-level action was needed after talking to Prince William in private. Even though she was polite with Queen Camilla, many close to her said that her true devotion was to the crown and her mother's heritage. She is said to have asked for a secret meeting with her brother the king. Reports from the discussion, which only a few top advisors were present at, say that it was honest and calm and that it wasn't meant to be an assault on family members, but an appeal to constitutional duty. She is supposed to have told the king, "You are the king, but you are also your mother's son." And she would never have let this happen. This was meant to remind him of how carefully his mother kept the two apart. The comment was not an ultimatum or a public reprimand, but rather a strong reminder of the obligation that a king has to future generations. Princess Anne warned that if things kept going the way they were, the monarchy's image may be permanently damaged, making it possible for it to be accused of favoritism, cronyism, and nepotism. After the discussion, many saw little difference in the Princess Royal's public behavior. For example, she turned down invitations to events where Camilla's children were anticipated to play important roles, saying she had other plans. People in the palace saw these refusals as a respectful but clear, quiet protest. Her involvement made the conflict within the family clear and had the king weigh the need to keep the peace in the family against the need to protect the institution. When a secret draft was released to the press, the situation took on a new level. The paper, which the media called a draft plan for how to run many royal trusts in the future, including several that have connections to the Duchy of Cornwall, included a provision that apparently mentioned Laura Lopes as a possible trustee. The leak transformed everything. What had been a mostly private and internal disagreement over access and visibility turned into a public debate about how power should be shared and how influence should be used. Critics saw the leaked proposal as evidence that talks about inclusiveness had gone beyond being polite to making plans to formalize power. Trustees of a royal trust have legal and fiduciary duties. They are in charge of administering the trust's money and property, making sure that charitable activities are carried out, and making sure that the trust runs according to its original intentions. Many people saw it as a shocking break from tradition and a possible threat to the rules that control the monarchy's relationship with property and power when a person who was not formally in line to succeed to the throne was mentioned in such a proposal. The leak got a lot more media attention very quickly. Opinion pieces, TV studios, and internet forums all spoke about what it meant, and the optics were bad. In a time when big organizations are being watched more closely to show that they are open and fair and hire people based on merit, the idea of a secret effort to get family members into powerful positions fueled stories of entitlement and nepotism. Editorial positions varied from tempered criticisms of the process to more incisive denunciations that connected the development to broader concerns over privilege in public life. More terrible things came after that. Journalists said they had a second batch of internal messages which were said to be emails between Camilla's private office and an advisory council linked to one of the trusts. Reports say that the tone of the letters was professionally polite, but the substance supposedly showed a pattern of pushing for Tom Parker Bowles and Laura Lopes to be more involved in humanitarian and historical initiatives connected to the monarchy. The communications didn't directly ask for honors or formal titles, but the overall effect was that they were trying to raise their public profiles and get them involved in the networks that support the Crown's charitable and cultural efforts. The cumulative impact of these admissions was catastrophic for those who wanted the Queen's family to be more involved. The conversation changed from talking about how family standards should change to blaming people for having too much privilege and entitlement. Prince William and Princess Anne are believed to have shown King Charles the findings of these leaks and argued that they had severely damaged public trust. Insiders say their message was clear. The monarchy must not be seen as a private group where personal ties determine who gets to be in charge. People's reactions became stronger. Trending hashtags spread quickly. Opinion surveys showed that people were losing faith in the royal family's ability to rule, and pundits urged immediate action to fix the problem. The king was in a position that was becoming more and more unsustainable. Private negotiations could no longer control the damage to his image, and the demand to respond meaningfully from both the family and the public became stronger. Since discussions were no longer able to stop the harm, the issue needed a clear and final solution. King Charles chose a strong solution when faced with conflicting requests from senior family members, a growing public uproar, and negative media coverage. Buckingham Palace made a short but important announcement that all royal trusts and foundations will have their management protocols restructured and clarified. The new policy was clear and stringent at its core. From then on, only blood relatives of the House of Windsor would be able to oversee, operate, and represent these organizations in ceremonies. The order wisely didn't name Tom Parker Bowles or Laura Lopes, and it didn't have to. Its clear writing did what private talks couldn't. It made a clear and strong line between the hereditary royal family and the Queen's family via marriage. This put a stop to any chance that the Queen's children would have any power, access, or official involvement in the monarchy's institutional structure. It is said that the king met secretly with Queen Camilla the night before the proclamation was made public to explain the choice. People who knew the palace said the chat was sad and honest. The king didn't say he did it because he wanted to. He said he had to do it to maintain the crown's reputation and continuity for future generations. He is claimed to have informed her that the institution needed a clear separation between personal and public life, saying, "The monarchy must survive us both." People said that the Queen's answer showed how sad she was. Over the years, she had to deal with a lot of public problems, but she eventually became widely recognized as Queen Consort, even if she had been contentious at first. She had worked hard to keep her public and private lives separate, But the new law broke apart a big part of the arrangement she had grown to depend on. People close to the marriage stated she didn't openly object but quietly accepted the king's decision. They thought this showed how deeply she was grieving. After the edict, the Queen's public schedule was curtailed. She canceled a few plans and became more reticent at the gatherings she did go to. People who worked near her said she was quiet, and that her support network, which had been obvious before, was no longer visible to the public. Tom Parker Bowles and Laura Lopes were no longer seen at royal events. Their public connection to official royal business ended when the new rules were put in place. The king's order did what it was meant to do, even if it was hard for him personally. Overall, people were very much in favor of what happened. There were protests outside Buckingham Palace in favor of the king, and commentators said that the move was meant to bring back clarity and tradition to the way the monarchy is run. Polls taken just after the announcement showed that approval ratings for both King Charles and the Prince of Wales had gone up. Many people saw the edict as a sign of institutional continuity and open government. For a monarchy that had lately been questioned about its fairness and internal consistency, reaffirming its basic norms appeared to calm people down. Weeks later, the decision was made official when the royal trust rules were changed, sealed, and put in the Windsor archives. This wasn't offered as a temporary repair. It was promoted as a permanent change to the monarchy's inner circle. The new charters made it clear that only direct bloodline successors may hold governmental roles, specifically naming the line of succession via the Prince of Wales and his progeny. The palace wanted to avoid any further confusion by looking at the regulation from a generational perspective. They made it clear that the adjustments were meant to keep the Constitution's long-term rationale intact, not to fix a short-term public relations problem. Along with the reform, the palace took serious measures to make sure that governance was in line with both legal requirements and public expectations. People who were selected to fill vacancies on trust boards were either descendants of the royal family or independent experts whose qualifications were clear and made public. Some trusts also paid for outside audits and reviews to assure donors, partner organizations, and the public that assets and charitable programs would be managed fairly. Trustees who were thought to be affected by the scandal were removed where required, and outside experts were called in to improve accountability when necessary. These steps were presented as part of a larger attempt to modernize and improve openness and public trust, even though they upheld the existing limits on membership. The effects on the institution went beyond just changing staff. Constitutional lawyers and historians discussed the legal and symbolic significance of the proposal in the national media. Many people said that the monarchy's legitimacy comes less from written laws and more from what people think what has come before and what constitutional theorists term constitutional conventions, which are the unwritten standards that govern behavior. In this way, the palace's intervention was both preventative and performative. It was preventative because it tried to stop the boundaries from becoming any weaker, and it was performative because it showed the Crown's readiness to put institutional neutrality above personal relationships. Princess Anne's reputation improved after the event thanks to a lot of historians and observers who said that her action was a key time when a senior royal responded quickly to protect institutional values. Her unwillingness to accept a vague extension of official tasks was described as a way to protect the monarchy's legitimacy, which relied on following tradition and keeping private preferences apart from public duties. Many constitutional conservatives thought she had done the hard work the Crown needed. She had turned private worry into strong moral action that made clear the difference between personal relationships and official appointments. The reorganization also had effects on the Queen's family. Tom Parker Bowles and Laura Lopes left the royal world and went back to their jobs and personal lives. Palace officials said the arrangement was final, even if it was hard on a personal level. The stillness surrounding them was not ephemeral. It meant that they were permanently adjusting to the new norms. People who had worked with them on humanitarian projects said that their ties were still friendly, but they were no longer part of the formal royal patronage. At least in an official sense, their public relationship with the monarchy was gone. There were other effects to think about as well. The ruling established a standard for how the royal family would handle the relatives of future consorts. It also made it obvious that marriage does not provide people institutional rights. Commonwealth nations whose governors-general and civic leaders closely follow British royal customs saw how clear the step was. In capitals where the argument over republics comes up from time to time, several analysts said that the move lessened a possible source of conflict by making a rule that is easy to understand: the bloodline. Not the extended family is what makes a monarchy work. Some people who didn't like the plan said it may make it harder for the monarchy to modernize, hire more people, and represent how families are now. They thought the policy may go too far and become too conservative, which would make it less flexible. Some charitable partners privately grumbled that the unexpected withdrawal of experienced and competent interlocutors interrupted current programs, necessitating time-consuming changes and reallocation of duties. Some people said that making a strict line between personal ties and public responsibility might make the sovereign's family seem less human and less accessible. This could make it harder for the crown to connect with people who value authenticity and approachability. But for a lot of people inside and outside the palace, the math was easy. The monarchy's most important asset is the faith of the people, and the danger of losing that trust was just too enormous. In a media landscape marked by swift distribution and immediate story construction, impressions solidify rapidly. The repercussions of even a semblance of impropriety may last significantly. So the king's choice was portrayed as an effort to fix things that also reaffirmed long-standing constitutional goals. King Charles is said to have sent Queen Camilla a handwritten letter with the official papers as a last private gesture to show how much the choice had cost. Royal insiders said that the letter recognized the great human cost of the news. It is believed that the king apologized for letting the line between his personal life and his official responsibility get blurred. He wrote that what had been meant to be a family affair had turned into an institutional intrusion. According to insiders, the letter ended with the words, "I had no choice. History demanded this." This phrase summed up the hard math of monarchy personal feelings versus the duty to an institution that by its very nature must be larger than the people who hold it. In the months that followed, the royal family changed the way they acted in public, making it more focused and new. The Prince of Wales's position grew increasingly important. He had more duties and was seen more often at official occasions with his father. This was a clear hint that he was not only the designated successor, but also a key steward of the crown's future. The fact that his offspring were becoming more visible at public events helped to strengthen the idea of a direct and secure line of inheritance. These changes in public were meant to send a sense of continuity that power and representation in the monarchy come from an uninterrupted sequence of blood descent. This event will probably be remembered as a key point early in King Charles III's reign, when his personal relationships clashed with his duties as a monarch. The king put institutional integrity ahead of family inclusion, which showed how important tradition and constitutional principle are to the monarchy. The re-established arrangement makes it such that people think of the crown as an institution whose power comes from a long-standing and established lineage, not from personal closeness or favor. By doing this, the palace wanted to do more than just settle a private disagreement. It wanted to confirm the monarchy's basic essence for future generations. However, such reaffirmation will not eliminate all tensions. Questions persist regarding how the crown can reconcile compassionate treatment of personal relationships with the necessity of impartiality, how the monarchy might evolve without undermining the constitutional conventions that uphold its unique position, and how, in a time of increased demand for transparency and accountability, it can maintain public trust. The incident showed how fragile that trust is, but it also showed how it can be fixed by making clear, principled choices that put the institution's continuation above personal preference. The palace has drawn a line in the sand for now. This is an institutional gesture meant to help a long-standing but still alive institution deal with the stresses of modern public life. Thank you for watching the video. Please let us know your thoughts and goodbye for now.